Starting off this countdown, we have the Selma Mansion. This 20-room mansion was constructed back in 1902 and was known for hosting extravagant balls and dinner parties. Now it's known for being home to multiple ghosts. The home was originally owned by a man named Elijah Brokenborough. Honestly, that sounds like a name of someone who would own a mansion. Elijah Brokenborough. He then gave the property to his daughter, who lived in the mansion until she died in 1970. Then the house kept getting passed around until it was abandoned in the early 2000s. Now the home has been ransacked. The windows are all broken, the inside is vandalized, but be careful if you do dare to trespass. You may come in contact with a couple of ghosts who are said to roam the rooms and corridors at night. In our 9th spot, we have the Hot Mansion. Much about the history of this house remains a secret. However, it's rumored that the home was a brothel back in the 1940s. Years later, a number of dead bodies were found in the mansion's basement. The torsos and chests of the victims had perfect round circles on them. However, we don't really know if that is the truth. Other people claim that a man named Henry Glover owned the house back in 1892. However, he died in the house the morning after just moving in. To this day, it remains a very mysterious and creepy house. Moving on at number 8, we have the Temple Street Mansion. Located in East Cleveland, this mansion located on Temple Street is the home to numerous tragedies. In 1942, it said that 3 priests were found murdered in the mansion. Then in 2013, the mansion was the dumping ground of a serial killer. 3 women were found dead in the house, wrapped in plastic bags. Now it's said that it's haunted by several spirits. In fact, neighbors from across the street have seen and heard paranormal activity coming from the house. In our 7th spot, we have the Mud House Mansion. Located in Fairfield County, Ohio, this mansion remains a huge mystery. Not a lot of people know the history of this house. It's thought that it was built in the 1840s, 50s, 70s, or the 1900s. No one truly knows. Because of the lack of history surrounding this mansion, people have made up their own. Legend goes that this was the original home of Bloody Mary, who still haunts the place. Whereas others believe that government officials used the house to hide captives after the Civil War. But apparently, one managed to escape and murdered the official and his family. The house was demolished in 2015 after not being occupied since the 1930s. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the John List House. This 19-room mansion located in New Jersey is another mansion filled with tragedies. In November of 1971, the owner, John List, killed his entire family. He then gathered all of their bodies, except his mother's, and lined them up in the ballroom. He turned on the radio to a religious station, turned on all the lights, cut his face out from the family photos, and then fled. The bodies weren't discovered until a month later, after friends and family were wondering where they were. As for John List, well, he fled to Denver and changed his name. However, he was caught and arrested in 1989. But he never admitted to the crimes. The home remained abandoned for years until an arsonist burnt it down in 1974. As a result, a new identical mansion was built in the exact spot. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Ohio Mystery Mansion. Unlike the other mansions, this home's identity was never mentioned. It was explored by the well-known American photographer Seth Lawless. He claims that when he entered the mansion, he saw eerie fresh footprints leading into the house. Not only that, but the bathroom in the house had blood on the walls. In the bathtub, he found a dead dog. He also heard scratching noises and strange whispers coming from one of the rooms. To make things worse, in one of the rooms there was a display of mannequin heads and metal tools. That's weird interior decorating. The neighbor claims to hear noises coming from the house all the time. But honestly, I just wish we knew more about this house and its history. Coming in at number 4, we have Villa de Vecchi. Another creepy mansion with an even creepier backstory. The Villa de Vecchi in Italy, owned by Count Felix de Vecchi, was commissioned to be built in the 19th century. However, the architect died a year before he completed the project, which put a supposed curse on the property. Shortly after the family moved in, Count Felix discovered that his wife had been murdered. As a result, he ended up taking his own life. The villa was then passed to his brother, who lived there until World War II. It's been vacant since 1960. The spookiest part? In 2002, an avalanche wiped out all the houses in the area, except this one. Moving on at number 3, we have the Halcyon Hall. Sorry, Halcyon Hall. Located in Millbrook, New York, the mansion was first built as a hotel in the 1890s. From there, it was transformed into an all-girls school before being shut down in 1978. Now, this mansion is said to be home to multiple ghosts. Once, a carpenter working there said they heard moans and cries coming from the basement. Other people said a ghost of a woman would visit them in their sleep. The 1960s was when the most paranormal activity happened. Objects would disappear only to reappear later on, or would move on their own. Residents would also often see a bald, chubby man in a brown suit wandering around and sitting in their chairs. In our second spot, we have the Liu family mansion. Located in Taiwan, the Liu family mansion was built in 1929 for a businessman and his family of 8. However, in the 1950s, the family abruptly fled from their home. The reason for leaving was unclear. However, some think it's because the house is haunted. Apparently, back in the day, the mansion's maid fell in love with the rich owner. They were having an affair, and when the secret got out, she drowned herself in the well. Now it's said that bad luck will follow any of the new residents of the house. Whereas other people think that the property is haunted by Japanese soldiers who died in battles on the grounds. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Franklin Castle. The Franklin Castle, otherwise known as the Tiedemann House, is a mansion located in Cleveland, Ohio. Built between 1881 to 1883, this mansion was first home to Hans Tiedemann, his wife, and kids. This mansion has 4 stories, more than 20 rooms, and 80 windows. That just called me broke. However, this mansion is said to be one of the most haunted houses in the US. Apparently, a bunch of murders have occurred in this house. Slowly, Tiedemann's family started to pass away, and people thought that he was behind their death. In 1968, the mansion was sold to James Romano and his family. That's when the hauntings began. The Romano family reported several encounters with ghosts. They even attempted exorcisms and had a ghost hunting group investigate the property. In 1975, human bones were found in the closet. It's thought that maybe they were planted there as a publicity stunt, but we still don't know. One thing that's for sure is that this house is certainly haunted.
Coming in at number 10, we have Montclair House at 44 Pleasant Avenue, Montclair. An eye-catching 6-bedroom, 3,900 square feet house in New Jersey is located on 3 acres of land, is more than 100 years old, and preserved by the Historic Preservation Commission given its historic significance. And it's on the market right now. Well, yeah, we're already talking about that $10 house. This one's listed for $10, not including the land though. The land has been commissioned for the site of 8 houses to be built around the historic house. Thus, the buyer of this $10 mansion will have to agree to move the house at their own expense. So yeah, there's always a catch-22. And also there's a lot of renovations that's needed in this house. All that along with preserving the historic elements inside the house, but removing the toxic lead paint and also the asbestos by law. No wonder no one wants to inherit this mess on purpose. So yeah, not even $10 is worth it. You could even pay me $10 to deal with all of that. At number 9, located on a tree-lined dead-end street in Nyack, New York, one Lovetto Place is famous as its past celebrity owners, including director Adam Brooks, singer Ingrid Michaelson, and rapper Majesty. The spacious home features 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, and its walking distance to downtown areas. The 1890 Queen Anne Victorian also boasts arched doorways, stained glass, and an in-ground saltwater pool, and views of the Hudson River for almost every room. So what seems to be the problem? Well, the home gained notoriety when the New York Supreme Court declared it legally haunted in 1991. Is this real life right now? I never knew a Supreme Court, like a judge, can deem a house legally haunted. Absolutely insane. The ruling was a result of the Zombovsky W. Ackley case, in which homebuyer Jeffrey Zombovsky sued seller Helen Ackley over not disclosing the haunting prior to the sale and fought sought to rescind his offer. Well, the court ruled in Sobofsky's favor, and the home made history. Absolutely insane. While there have not been any reported hauntings in recent years, perhaps you'll experience the paranormal activities the Aucklands publicly claimed to have had happened decades ago. Before selling the home, Helen and her family had reported multiple incidents of poltergeist from the Revolutionary War, shaking the bed, slamming doors, and leaving gifts. Okay, leaving gifts ain't the worst thing unless I don't know what the gifts are. Up next, number 8, in 1875, a wealthy chair manufacturer named Sylvester K. Pierce designed and built a magnificent Victorian home. This beautiful Massachusetts home boasts 10 beds, 2.5 baths, which is like a half a bathroom, so I think it's like no shower, 11-foot ceilings, marble fireplaces, and all original windows, doorknobs, hinges, and floors. So with all of those exquisite details, how could the owner possibly ask for just $329,000? That's roughly the same price as an average 3-bedroom home. So why is this beautiful mansion such a steal? Well, you guessed it, it's got a haunting history. Over the years, in the hands of many owners, 7 individual deaths have been documented in the house, including a strangled prostitute. The house experiences so much paranormal activities. It's actually been investigated by TV shows like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, My Ghost Story, and also in the show Top 10 Most Haunted Places in New England. So who is still roaming the halls of this gorgeous mansion? Well, some say they've seen figures of like a busy servant girl, others have seen a little boy who stares longingly out the front window, and to some they see a sad woman. I don't know about you guys, but ghosts are one thing, but creepy children ghosts, well, it's a hard no for me. Coming in hot at number 7 on this list, some homes aren't necessarily haunted like most on this list, but this next mansion just won't sell. 50 Cent, you know, the rapper 50 Cent, who has he been, where has he been these days? Is he still rapping, making music? I don't know where this guy is. Maybe he became $1. Well, he listed his 50,000 square foot home in Farmington, Connecticut for $18.5 million in 2015. In the fall of that year, he lowered his price from $18.5 million to $8.5 million. How do you slash a home by $10 million? Was it overpriced by $10 million? Or is he just taking a huge loss of $10 million? And this is after he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And then it didn't sell at that point, so he lowered it again, starting at $18.5 million to $5.995 million in 2016. And same situation, it's still on the market. So if you guys are looking to buy a $6 million home owned by 50 Cent, it's available for you right now, but you gotta move to like Connecticut. This next home is totally over the top with 21 bedrooms, 25 bathrooms in case you never know at any moment when you gotta use the bathroom. And then there's like bam, 10 on the floor you're on. There's an indoor pool, a hot tub, a substantial nightclub, because why not make money in the place you live? Let's bring all these like crazies into your house and hookers, and let's just party it out. There's an indoor court so you can hoop. There's multiple game rooms, a green screen room for us, we can go filming. So all the things I'm naming right now is all in 50 Cent's house that just won't sell. Alright, let's move on from that. Number 6, which is bringing you similar fashion to number 7, former President Barack Obama. Hey, if Obama's selling his house, I want to buy it. I want to see what secret rooms he's got going on, especially because Trump is president. Obama probably has like a bunker underground, and just in case. You know, there was lots of tension between Trump and North Korea, and missiles and nuclear wars. So you know, when you're buying this house, you're also buying a hidden bunker. Well, former President Barack Obama and his family rented this sprawling 7,000 square foot mansion in Martha's Vineyard for an entire summer in 2013, but that seemed not to have made the house any easier to sell. So the house listed it in 2015 for $22.5 million. Just 3 months later, the house had already chopped its price by 15%. They're pulling at 50 Cent in this one. So now the house on the market for $17.75 million. I mean, I get the hefty price tag, but who wouldn't want to live in a former president vacation home? And then imagine it's like 2 months out of the year you have to book a hotel because Obama needs your house. He's got to enjoy the summer. Next up, number 5, we got Mr. Kreischer's mansion. The magnificent Victorian mansion just outside of New York had a replica which was a stone's throws away. However, it was destroyed during the Great Depression. Generally, beautiful houses like this don't stay long in the market, but for this house, well, you guys know this list. This house is just not able to sell. It is said to be one of the most haunted places in the city. Firstly, Krishna's son committed suicide, which doesn't help the case of this house. There was rumors of voices. There was appearances and other paranormal phenomenon took hold of them. Do you guys think that you can live there? If you were paid $1 million to live in the world's most haunted house, with the chance of you dying, would you guys do it? Number 4, we have Shreppy Mansion, Lake Forest, Illinois. This place-like mansion is spread over 21,000 square feet. I mean, I would get lost in that. You can put a corn maze inside of your house and still get lost. And even though this house has 12 bathrooms, I'd be too lost to even find one of them. There's 11 baths, 400 feet of beach, which is absolutely insane. So this house has hosted a number of royals and nobles, including the Duke of Windsor, in its 100-year-long existence. After being expensively and elaborately restored, this royal mansion was put on the market for 18 million USD American dollars, which is like $100 million Canadian, because yeah, your guys' dollar is a lot better than ours. But then after they had to slice the price, they slashed it in half, like a 50% discount. It's like going to your realtor and he gives you a 50% code to use on a freaking house. Well, this was actually over a period of 10 years. The house just kept getting reduced and reduced and reduced, but still no one wants to buy it. Proper real estate and consistent data are available mostly for the mansions in the US, and they are on the market too. Although there are plenty of haunted houses and places in European countries, most of them are still owned by royals or the government, and they're not for sale. Many of these houses in this list are open for viewing, as the realtors can't wait to sell these cursed but gorgeous rejects. And if you're a realtor, do you have to say someone died in this house, or can you kind of like... Okay, next, at number 3, we have this next scary mansion that no one wants to buy. We're talking about the Pillars Estate, Albion, located in New York. So a lot of these are in the States. Is there anything up here in Canada that's haunted that no one wants to buy, that's underpriced, that I might consider? Well, another historic mansion in New York. Well, this is 7,200 square feet. The Greek style house has 6 bedrooms, 3 baths, 5 fireplaces, because I guess the winters in New York is very cold. A parlor, a library, and even a ballroom. So you can have your own wedding in your own house in the ballroom. It is a classic specimen of a mansion, and yet it was put on sale for $1 million. Again, USD, so like 10 million Canadian. But all jokes aside, come 2017, the price fell to half of the original without any buyers, despite the expensive renovations that made it livable. The reason behind this cannot get any more classy, given its style. The owners and the workers claim to have seen or heard humans around this Victorian mansions. Yeah, they heard a lot of ghosts, particularly a child from a former lady of the house. Again, the child ghost things, yeah, from the words of Simon Cowell, it's a no for me. Number 2 on this list, Los Feliz Murder House. I mean, is that the advertisement? Hey, house on sale, $10 million, Los Feliz Murder House. Would you like to buy it, sir? Yeah, if the price is right. 15 million? You got it. On December 6, 1959, cardiologist Harold Perelson murdered his wife with a hammer, then killed himself in this beautiful Spanish rivalry home in Los Feliz, California. After the infamous murder-suicide, the home was sold but never lived in. In fact, the interior wasn't cleaned out for years following the incident, preserving that night in time and adding to the home creepy aesthetics. Trespassers in the past have reported finding old magazines and books, canned foods, and cleaning supplies. Rumor has it there was even unwrapped presents sitting under the Christmas tree standing in one of the rooms. And the moment you guys have all been waiting for, number 1 on this list, the Dakota New Yorkers. Well, they might recognize this Central Park apartment building's iconic mix of architectural styles, while Beatle fans recognize it because of its history. Not only was the house we're talking about right now was the residence of John Lennon and also Yoko Ono, it was also a place where Lennon was fatally shot by Mark David Chapman in 1980. Throughout the building existence, residents and staff have claimed to see the ghost of a little girl and a crying lady and Lennon himself. However, supposed hauntings and an alleged curse won't keep buyers away from the luxurious 9-room apartment for sale inside the building. The residence feature 9-foot ceilings, original moldings, and city views from floor to ceiling windows. You may also have a famous neighbor as well. Past residents include Judy Garland and Bono. Yoko Ono still lives in the Dakota today. But even if you love the apartment and can afford the $10 million price tag, well, there's one thing keeping you from moving in. the Co-op Board. Upon receiving your application and background check results, this group of people chooses whether you live in the Dakota or not, and they are apparently scarier than any spirit hauntings the building. The board has a history of being choosy and has rejected such celebrities like Madonna, Alex Rodriguez, Cher, and Billy Joel. And they'll probably reject me as well.
Starting off this countdown, we have Lucy Hale. Now, this pretty little liar has experienced numerous paranormal occurrences in her home. Although she claims that nothing big has occurred, it's the little unexplained events that freak her out. Lucy claims that one time at 1 AM her coffee maker turned on by itself. I mean, hey, maybe the ghost just wanted a cup of joe. She also says that doors close by themselves and her dog barks unexplainably at random things. She also says that something will continuously trigger her motion detector without there being anything in sight. So she is convinced that her house is haunted. Next up at number 9, we have Gigi Hadid. Now, this model has claimed that spooky things would happen in her childhood home. When she was younger, she lived in a really old house, and her room was in the attic. Apparently, Gigi would hear weird noises coming from her closet. Her dad said that there was once an old lady that lived in the house, so Gigi and her sister thought that they were communicating with this old lady. Then she also said that every year she would have the same reoccurring dream. The dream would take place in her house, but the lighting would be more dark and eerie and it would be covered in fog. Then she said that people in suits with weird shaped heads would walk down the stairs towards her. I think we need a dream expert to analyze this. In our 8th spot, we have The Mansion. This next mansion was literally named The Mansion. How creative. And what's with celebrities naming their homes? Well, anyways, this home is owned by music producer Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin uses his home as a recording studio, and bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Linkin Park have recorded there. However, it is haunted. Hey, maybe the ghost just likes music. So, rumor has it that in 1918, one of the previous owners pushed his lover off of the balcony. Artists that have stayed over at the mansion have reported witnessing a bunch of scary activities. Some have seen orbs, others have seen doors opening and closing by themselves, and others have heard whispering in the walls. Dang, those ghosts are lucky. They get to hear songs before they're even released to the public. Coming in at number 7, we have the Pickfair Mansion. Back in the 1920s, Mary Pickford was a well-known silent film actress. Her and her husband Douglas Fairbanks were an iconic couple. Now, they purchased a 22-room mansion which they named the Pickfair. This mansion is currently on sale for $60 million. So, if you have that kind of money and don't mind rooming with a ghost, then this mansion is for you. So apparently a spirit of a servant roams this property. It has been reportedly seen on several occasions by different individuals. Now, in 1936, the couple divorced and Mary kept the estate and shared it with her new husband, Charles Rogers. When Mary passed away, Rogers was visited by a woman in a long white gown. He claimed that this was Mary herself visiting him. When the mansion was resold, the spirit sightings increased. People saw the woman in the white gown along with a male entity in the front hallway. They also would see an apparition of a figure holding sheet music. Now, this home was demolished and a new home was built on top. Since the demolition, the sightings have apparently stopped. Honestly, I'm sure there are some people that wouldn't mind having ghosts as roommates. They wouldn't eat your food and they wouldn't be too noisy. Up next at number 6, we have the Jenner Mansion. Apparently, Kendall Jenner is convinced that her mother's mansion is haunted. She explains that Kylie and herself would hear footsteps on the roof when no one was home. Honestly, it would not surprise me if it was just the paparazzi. She also claims that Kylie's shower would turn on by itself. Now, Kendall also admitted that her family would toy around with an Ouija board. One day, they got in contact with a spirit that answered all of their questions accurately. Although Chris does not believe this, Kendall is completely convinced a ghost lurks around her mother's house. Honestly, at least this ghost sounds harmless. From what I gathered, it likes to shower and be clean and likes to do a little tap dancing on the roof. Nothing to worry about. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Adele's mansion. Now, rumor has it, yes that's a pun, that Adele lived in a haunted house. The mansion was worth $11 million and was located in Sussex, England. Although Adele has not witnessed turning tables, she has witnessed other creepy occurrences. Adele said that she used to hear strange, unexplainable noises. She even said that objects around her house would fall down. As a result, she always felt uneasy and even hired a nighttime bodyguard and upped her security system. Now, Adele only lived there for 2 years before moving out. Before Adele lived there, it was a convent with its own chapel. If Adele lived there longer, maybe the ghost would have said hello from the other side. I don't apologize for all those Adele song puns. Comment down below if you caught them all. Up next at number 4 we have Matthew McConaughey. Alright, Matthew McConaughey. So during his interview with Jennifer Garner for the movie Ghost of Girlfriends Past, Matthew told the interviewer all about his haunted home. Now, Matthew claimed that his home was haunted by a woman named Madame Blue. He claims that she didn't seem like a happy or friendly spirit. But Matthew stood his ground and told her, "You can move around all you want, but I'm not going anywhere." Okay, he's pretty brave. Now, every time that Matthew had a guest over, they too would say that they thought they saw or felt this woman. Now, apparently one day Matthew heard a noise coming from a room and he went to investigate without any clothes on. Since that day, the ghost has made peace with Matthew and they get along. So maybe that's the new way to ward off ghosts. In our third spot, we have Allison Hannigan. This How I Met Your Mother star claims that her LA home is haunted by a male ghost. Her and her friends have both seen this ghost multiple times. The first instance was when Allison's friends saw the ghost and said, "I don't mean to alarm you, but I just saw a man follow us out of the house." I love how she said, "I don't mean to alarm you." Like, of course it's going to. But Allison believes that it is a pleasant ghost. She claims that it's not somebody that died in the home because there's a law in LA that when you buy a house, if somebody died, then they have to disclose that to you. Allison also shared that one night she saw the silhouette of the man standing in her bathroom doorway. She thought that it was her husband, but turns out he was asleep beside her. Allison is not afraid of this ghost at all. In fact, she really wants to learn its name. She has stated that she wants to put a chalkboard in the area that they see him the most to see if he'll write down his name. Sounds like a good plan, until he writes down something creepy. Coming in at number 2, we have the LaLaurie house. Now, this house was said to be owned by Madame LaLaurie. She tortured and murdered endless slaves in her mansion. It is said that one night a fire occurred in the mansion. When help arrived, they found several tortured individuals in her house. Madame fled and was never seen again. Now, this house was once owned by America's own national treasure, Nicolas Cage. He claimed that while others have a beachfront property, he has a ghost front property. Apparently, it is haunted by several of the tortured individuals that once lived there. But apparently Cage loved living there. He even said that one of his greatest memories from when he was a kid was from the haunted mansion at Anaheim in New Orleans Square. He then felt that living there was fulfilling his childhood fantasy. And in our number 1 spot, we have Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn is an American country music legend with multiple hit songs. Now, her mansion, located in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee, is said to be haunted by multiple ghosts. Now, Loretta herself has even claimed that she has some sort of psychic abilities and can see ghosts. So in her home, she has heard weird noises and has seen apparitions. Even her daughters have seen a ghost of a Confederate soldier in her home. After doing research, Lynn discovered that her home used to be the site of a Civil War battle. It is also said that 19 soldiers are buried on the grounds. Now, Lynn claims to have seen a young woman weeping on her property. She believes that this is the ghost of Beulah Anderson, who lost her baby. Now, to go even further, Lynn has even conducted seances in her home. One time, she got in contact with a spirit named Anderson. Anderson got angry and started shaking the table before it broke from being slammed to the floor. Apparently, James Anderson was one of the original owners of the home. Starting off this countdown, we have the diseased Barbies. Posted on Reddit by the user Anitra Rash, she shares a photo of some horrifying dolls found in an abandoned house. The dolls are of the lovers Barbie and Ken. Except the poor couple are covered in mold. It makes them look pretty terrifying. They could use a little TLC. Barbie is seen wearing a white nightgown and her poor face is covered in mold, making her almost unrecognizable. Then you have Ken, who is shirtless and pantless, and unfortunately both his legs are covered in mold. But his ripped bod remains spotless. Even the mold is intimidated by his rock hard abs. But honestly, the two look terrifying, like something you would see creepy possessed girls playing with in horror movies. In our 9th spot, we have the hidden room. This story was posted on Reddit by the user mdicky3. About 2 years ago, his grandparents bought an old mansion. When he arrived there for the first time, he did what anyone else would do and went exploring. Specifically, he wanted to find secret passageways. Honestly, sounds like me. I would love to go on an adventure trying to find secret passageways. Well, he was upstairs checking out an old bookcase built into a wall when he noticed a small latch on the bookcase. Of course, when he pulled on the latch, it opened up to reveal a hidden room. Classic, something right out of a Scooby-Doo cartoon. In this space, they found a tiny room with a cot, some clothes, and some dishes. He told his parents what he found, but they assumed it was just an old servant's quarters. Well, they were wrong. Turns out that someone had actually been living in the house and tried to break back in that night. Ever heard of squatters' rights? It probably technically is his property now, depends on how long he was in that room for. In our 8th spot, we have Lennox Castle. The Lennox Castle, located in Scotland, was built in 1812 for John Lennox Kincaid, the distant relative of some well-known Earls of Lennox. It's said that this mansion, often referred to as a castle, was his home for quite some time. Then in 1927, it was converted into an asylum for the mentally ill. A couple years later, during World War II, it was turned into a hospital. As a result, the mentally ill patients were transferred to another area in the building. But this didn't go too well. Apparently, there would be a lot of fights between patients. In fact, during one fight, a lot of the staff and patients ran from the hospital. The patients that didn't escape were then locked inside. The hospital was vacated by the 1980s, and in 2002 it was abandoned completely. Now it's said that if you enter the mansion and go to the area where the patients were kept, you'll be able to see blood and scratch marks all along the walls from them fighting and trying to escape. Coming in at number 7, we have the creepy statues. Posted on Reddit by the user sketch_crush, they described a massive mansion that was for sale in their area. Apparently it was built about 100 years ago and the original owner killed himself in it. Now it's believed to be haunted by his soul. After that incident, the mansion was vacant for years. Finally, it's back on the market. Now, what's creepy about this mansion, besides its already terrifying history, is the fact that there are large amounts of creepy statues and stone carvings in and around the house. Like on the upper half of the mansion, a window is replaced by a statue of a creepy old man in a cloak. That just makes the home that much more terrifying. But if it hasn't sold already, go check it out and you can buy it. It could be yours. Moving on to number 6, we have the Witch's Mansion. Seth Lawless, photographer and explorer, went on a trip exploring a bunch of supposedly haunted abandoned mansions. One he came across was this one in Milan, Ohio. He claims that this mansion is where local witches would practice their craft. To make things creepier, it's said that the original owner of the mansion, a witch herself, was buried right underneath the front porch. First off, whenever I hear the word witch, I think of a green-skinned old lady with a black hat and a broomstick. Am I the only one? But no, not all witches are evil, so maybe it was a friendly witch casting nice spells, not one that on the strike of midnight will rise up out of her grave from under the porch. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Hooley Mansion. This is another mansion that was explored by Seth Lawless. This mansion, located in Texas, used to be a bed and breakfast in the 70s, but it's also apparently where numerous strange deaths have occurred. Now, here's the thing. If you Google this mansion, nothing turns up. We don't know the location of this house or anything. The only photos of it are the ones that Lawless has taken. Either he made up the name and story, or the identity and real name of the house are kept a secret to prevent looters and vandals. But it's more fun to think that it's a real haunted house where you'll die if you stay the night. Coming in at number 4, we have the Locked Away Mansion. A pair of urban explorers were out touring an abandoned mansion when they came across something very, very strange and creepy. All of the bedroom doors locked from the outside, and the windows were bolted from the outside. So if someone wanted to, they could lock you in that room and you would have no way to escape. Not only that, but some of the doors had deep scratches on it, as if someone was clawing at the door trying to escape. So I don't know what went on in that house. I lied, I do. It's probably someone would lock their victims in the rooms and then torture them. Moving on to number 3, we have the crawl space. Upon moving into a new mansion with her kids, they found a crawl space in one of the bedrooms. But that's not the scary thing. In the crawl space, they found a box containing old Ken dolls. But these Ken dolls had their hands melted together and razor blades sticking out of their arms. So either the previous family had a child who is growing up to be a killer, or some sicko made these dolls for kids to play with. Or it's Sid's house from Toy Story. Either way, I don't want to meet the person that made those dolls. In our second spot, we have Chateau Miranda. This mansion was built in 1866 for the family Lyda Kirk Beaufort. They lived at this home until World War II. Then it housed sick and orphaned children until 1980, which is when it became abandoned. According to local urban explorers, they found a creepy room in the mansion filled with old and dirty children's toys, like dolls, balls, and even a jack-in-the-box that was rusty but still worked. In one of the hallways, there was also an abandoned tricycle right smack in the middle of it. Yeah, that's a sure sign to leave the mansion. We don't need no shining jigsaw stuff going down with that thing. Then it said that the landlord burnt down the mansion in 2017. Why? Probably because it was haunted. And in our number 1 spot, we have Cheonei No 81. Completed in 1910, the Cheonei No 81 mansion was originally built as a church for British residents in Beijing. Then in 1949, it was home to a high-ranked official and his wife. But he ended up leaving her and fleeing to Taiwan. As a result, the grief-struck woman hung herself from the rafters of the mansion. Now it's believed that her spirit haunts the abandoned home. Apparently, some people moved into the house a while later and then fled a few days later, terrified. There have also been stories of unexplainable disappearances connected to the house. Like the time 3 construction workers working on a nearby house got drunk and decided to break into the mansion. They were never seen or heard from again. It's also said that during summers, it's always shockingly cold around the mansion. Starting off this countdown, we have the Den of Snakes. Some abandoned locations are more dangerous than others. You really don't know what you're getting into when you enter them. Maybe the floors will just give in under your feet. Or in this case, maybe you'll be greeted by some slithery friends. A group of urban explorers visited an abandoned mansion in their town, and when they got inside, they found a family of snakes living underneath the couch. Even if they were harmless, I don't want those things lurking anywhere near me, no thank you. But it could have been worse. Could have been a den of poisonous snakes. Moving on to number 9, we have the Somewhere House. A pretty famous abandoned home for urban explorers is called the Somewhere House. It was named by the person who discovered it. Obviously, he didn't want to expose the location of the house, so he just titled it Somewhere. Now it's been named the Mid-Century Time Capsule House, because if you enter this house, you feel like you've been transported back in time to the 1960s and 70s. The style and decor of the house reflects those time periods. So back in 2015, the urban explorer Freaktography was searching this house when he came across a safe in one of the rooms. Hoping to find money or valuables, he opened it up. But what he found scared the crap out of him. In the safe was a note that read, "Danger, MK1 hand grenade inside. This is not a joke. Bob Jr." And sure enough, the grenade was still there. The explorer then carefully closed the lid and got the heck out of there. Definitely don't want to risk setting that baby off. I just want to know why there was a grenade in the safe in the first place, and who is Bob Jr.? In our 8th spot, we have the Well. Some fancy mansions have a full bar in their basements. Others have a nice home movie theater. But this old abandoned house had something quite different in their basement. A well. Now, in pre-1940 homes, you may find this to be a thing. But there was something off about this well. For starters, the well was blocked off by a trap door, as if someone was thrown down there and then the well was sealed off so they couldn't get out, or so that visitors couldn't hear their screams for help. Or it was blocked off so that Pennywise can't crawl back out of there. In our 7th spot, we have The Spirit Lives. Back in 2015, YouTuber and urban explorer Freaktography was exploring abandoned homes in Ontario. While in southwestern Ontario, he found a mansion with some very very unsettling things. So in this house, he found an old box with the words "The Spirit Lives" written on it. Inside of it were dozens of photos of an old dead woman lying in her casket. Now I know that back in the day it was a tradition to send loved ones photos of the dead in their caskets if they couldn't attend the funeral, but those photos are just so unnerving. Also in the box were condolence cards and programs from the funeral service. I mean, what makes it so creepy is how the box was labeled "The Spirit Lives." Makes it seem like if you open this box, then her soul is just going to escape. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the mannequin. So not all abandoned places are going to be terrifying, but some people, with nothing else better to do, get a little creative and have a little fun at these abandoned locations. And by this, I mean purposely setting up the house to terrify its next visitors. So in one abandoned mansion, an explorer found a mannequin hanging from the ceiling by a rope around its neck. Nearby was a ladder lying on the ground, making it look like the dirty old mannequin committed suicide. Yeah, that's enough to freak anyone out. Pretty creative though, I'm not gonna lie. Mannequins are creepy enough on their own, but this person just turned the creep factor to the extreme. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the tiger. A man in Houston went inside an abandoned home when he came across a frickin' tiger. This is reminding me of that scene from The Hangover. Apparently this guy wandered into the house to smoke some weed, but upon doing so, he found a tiger in the garage. When he called the police had to make sure that the dude wasn't just hallucinating from being high as a kite. But he was right, there was a tiger in the garage along with several packages of meat. Maybe Joe was just chilling out there with a tiger for a few days. Well, police ended up tranquilizing the tiger and took it to an animal shelter. They still don't know whose tiger it is and what it was doing in an abandoned house in the first place. Coming in at number 4, we have the bunker. If you were able to design your own mansion, what would you want it to have? Maybe an indoor swimming pool or a slide from the top floor to the main floor? I personally would want a bunch of secret rooms and passageways. That would be so cool. Now I ask because this next abandoned mansion had a secret bunker in the basement. Inside they found a supply of food, water, and equipment. But it looked as if whoever was there left in a hurry and just grabbed as much supplies as they could. Why did they have to flee? What happened to them? And where did they disappear to? Someone answer my questions. In our 3rd spot, we have these skeletons. There's a saying about people having skeletons in their closet, but of course this is just an idiom, meaning maybe they've done something bad in their past that they are ashamed of and keep hidden from others. But in this next case, this abandoned mansion literally had skeletons in its closet. So upstairs in the master bedroom, an urban explorer came across a chest in the closet. Thinking it's like a pirate treasure chest, he opened it, only to find a large assortment of bones. But there wasn't just one chest, there were multiple, all filled with bones. Thinking that the previous owner was some sort of serial killer, he fled the scene of the crime. A couple days later, he returned to the same spot with a group of his friends, but this time the boxes of bones were gone. Okay, that's really creepy. Like, whose bones are those? Are they human or are they animal bones? And where did they disappear to? In our 2nd spot, we have the resident. A group of urban explorers decided to go check out an abandoned mansion in their town. The mansion was badly vandalized and as creepy as they expected it to be. However, after looking around the house for quite some time, they saw someone run by one of the doors. Thinking that someone was living in the old abandoned mansion, they fled. However, when reviewing some photos and videos that they took of the mansion, they realized that the person living there wasn't alive. No, it was a ghost. In one of the photos you could see a dark figure lurking at that same doorway. After seeing that, they all agreed to never go back to that mansion ever again. It's not worth pissing off a ghost and getting possessed by it. And in our number 1 spot, we have the Doctor's Mansion. Brian Sansevero, urban explorer and photographer, ended up finding an abandoned mansion that once belonged to a wealthy doctor. But this doctor didn't work at a hospital. No, he worked out of his house. In fact, sections of his house were converted into a waiting room, examination room, and procedure room for his patients, meaning people probably ended up dying in his very own home. That's not even the creepy part. When you first walked into the house, you are greeted by a skinned wolf carpets. Then in the medical rooms there are bottles of mysterious liquids, old medicine, and creepy medical tools. I mean, the home is quite beautiful, minus the creepy hospital rooms it has.
Starting us off with number 10 is the Villisca Axe Murder House. Do I even need to tell the story of this one? After hearing the name, I'm sure none of you would even want to move in. But either way, located in Villisca in southwestern Iowa, the house was home to the Moore family, which included the parents Josiah and Sarah and their 4 children. On the 10th of June 1912, one of the children invited 2 friends to spend the night at the Moore house after a children's day at the church. They all got home at around 10 PM and that was that. The next day at 7 AM, the Moores' neighbor Mary got worried because she didn't see any of the Moores do their morning chores. She knocked on the door and no one answered. Josiah's brother also tried opening the door after getting a call from Mary, but to no avail. Thankfully, he did have a spare key and he went inside. When he opened the guest bedroom door, he found the bodies of the 2 guests lying on their beds. He called the police immediately, and after investigation, it was found the entire family and the 2 friends were bludgeoned to death with an axe. Apparently, the killer or the killers had been waiting in the attic, and as soon as everyone fell asleep, they struck. Josiah was axed the most out of everyone. His face was so disfigured, even his eyes were missing. The blade was only used on him and the blunt part was used on the rest of the family. The culprit or the culprits were never found, and after that point, the home is considered one of the most haunted ones in America. People even pay $400+ to stay there for a single night, but these guests report hearing children's voices and seeing objects just fly across the room. A paranormal investigator even stayed there in 2014 and then stabbed himself after spending the night. Need I say more? Don't go there. Coming in at number 9 is Lemp Mansion. Located in St. Louis, Missouri, this mansion has seen its fair bit of tragedy, probably enough tragedy for a lifetime. The mansion has 33 rooms altogether and was built by William Lemp sometime in the 1860s. William and his wife had 4 sons, and after their youngest, Frederick, died, William ended up committing suicide in 1904 shortly after. So death count right now is 2, just keep that in mind. A few years later, William's wife died of cancer in the house, death count 3, and by 1922 William Jr. ended up shooting himself in the same room his dad committed suicide in, death count 4. If that honestly isn't horrible enough, in 1949 William's 3rd son Charles shot his dog in the basement of the house and then went up to his bedroom and killed himself. Death count, final, 6. The house ended up being sold the same year and turned into a boarding house when obviously the hauntings began. Honestly, that many people can't die in a house for there to be no hauntings. Safe to say you'll find me in no rush whatsoever to move into the Lemp Mansion. No thank you. At number 8 we have The Previous Tenant. Now this story was shared by an anonymous person, so sadly I can't give him credit, but the show must go on. Now this woman had just moved into her first apartment with her boyfriend, and then she heard the doorknob moving like someone was unlocking it. She didn't think anything of it since she just assumed it was her boyfriend that came home, but then she looked at the time. It was 8:30 PM and usually he was meant to come home at 10:30, so something just wasn't right. She looked out the window and she couldn't see his car or anything, and that's when she started to panic. Someone kept trying to open the door, but it wasn't working. A few minutes later they stuck some metal between the door to try and pry it open, and that failed as well. The girl was freaking out at that point like anyone would, and so she called 911 and hid in her bathroom with a knife. Good call, honestly, always arm yourself. I've never been in this position, but I would arm myself too. The person tried to pry the door open for at least 30 minutes before giving up, and when police got there they found an old man roaming the area with a crowbar and a knife. Apparently he was the old tenant of the apartment and he wanted all his stuff back that the new couples had apparently stole. They didn't steal anything, he was just very, very delusional, and if I was her in the bathroom I would literally be sending my last text messages to all my loved ones. Just imagine being at home, hearing someone trying to come into your house and kill you and take your stuff. Filling our number 7 slot is the Bell Witch Farm. Now this is more legend than it is confirmed, but I feel like there are just way too many intricate details in the story for it to just be mere folklore, but let me know what you guys think. Located in Robertson County, Tennessee, John Bell Sr. lived on his farm with his family, and this story focuses on just friendly neighborly war gone very, very wrong. Now John's neighbor Kate Batts believed he achieved cheated her out of quite a bit of land. And clearly she was determined to stay salty about it forever, because while on her deathbed she promised to haunt John for the rest of her life and his. Soon after, the Bell family became the target of some of the worst haunting of all time. They would hear chains dragged across their floor, their servant would be followed by a massive black dog-looking apparition. When he went to visit his wife, John saw a massive creature who he shot at, but then who disappeared into thin air. The family would hear the sound of gnawing on their beds, the growls of invisible dogs fighting. John even started being physically haunted when his mouth just started to paralyze itself at random times. The children were then attacked when the sheets were pulled from their beds and they were literally flipped out of their beds while asleep. Kate's ghost would just scratch the children, and she hated John's youngest daughter Betsy the most. She would slap her, stick pins into her like it was a proper vengeance act. And all that for a bit of land. Like, Kate, you are dead. Please move on. Now at number 6 is the Joshua Ward House. Located in Essex County, the house belonged to Sheriff George the Strangler Corwin back in the day. And he may not ring a bell, but he was the High Sheriff of the county during the Salem witch trials, and I feel like everyone knows what that is. He was known throughout the country to strangle the accused by tying necks and heels, which basically means he would force the person's body into hoops, and then he would rope their neck to their feet until blood came gushing out of their mouth and their nose. Everyone honestly hated this man. He even stoned an 8-year-old farmer to death who refused to stand trial for witchcraft. He's 80 years old. Anyway, 4 years later, George had a heart attack and died. His family was so scared a riot crowd would dismember his body that they interned his body in their house's cellar. The house is now a bed and breakfast called the Merchant and is apparently one of the most haunted houses in New England. And I'm not even surprised, this dude pissed off so many people and killed them in such gruesome ways. If I was one of his victims, I'd make sure no one enjoyed being in that house ever again. And since I'd be dead, I'd have forever to spend doing it. Coming in at number 5 is the Lizzie Borden House. Located in Fall River, Massachusetts, the house is home to the Borden family in the late 1800s. Lizzie's father Andrew and her stepmother Abby were found axed to death in the house, and Lizzie scandalously became the main suspect. Also, this is the second axe murder on the list, taking place in the 1800s. Like, why was axe such a weapon of choice back in the day? Such a brutal weapon. I feel like people who use axes really enjoy seeing the bloodshed. Anyway, I drifted off. Lizzie had a long and brutal trial, but she was acquitted of both murders and then later refused to live in her family home. Lizzie and her sister Emma moved into another house they named Maplecroft, and she lived there until she died. These days the house operates as a bed and breakfast, and funnily enough, the most requested room to lodge in is the room where Abby's body was found. You people are freaks! Apparently guests have heard a maid screaming for help late at night and the cackling of Lizzie. Her axed parents' ghosts are also known to wander around the property. If any of you guys been there, let me know. And why are all these murder houses being turned into bed and breakfasts? Surely there's better property than that. Surely. At number 4 is the House of Death, and I didn't even make up that title, that's actually what it's called, I swear to God. Located in Greenwich Village, New York, this house was constructed way back in the 1850s, and a record 22 people have died in this house. And yes, that means the house is also haunted by 22 ghosts, which is around 23 ghosts more than I'd like. Anyway, Mark Twain lived in the house at the beginning of the 1900s, and his ghost is said to be seen on the first floor near the staircase. The family home was turned into a 10-unit apartment building, and the first couple that moved in there felt a monstrous moving shadow looming over them at all times. The actress Jan Bartel, who felt the shadow, wrote a memoir about her experiences at the house, how she felt hands brushing her neck and this rotting odor that was just always present. She'd have visions of seeing people, and when the couple called a medium, the person felt many dead things under the floorboards, whether that was a dead girl or a cat perhaps, and after hearing that, the couple left very soon after. Former attorney Joel Steinberg moved into the place a few years later and beat his partner's 6-year-old daughter into a coma, after which she died. Residents have seen the ghosts of that little girl, another lady in white, another one in black, a grey cat, and just many, many more. Safe to say, unless these 22 ghosts are paying rent, I'm not sharing a house with them. Thank you, next. Filling our number 3 slot is the Los Feliz mansion. Why do so many bad things happen at mansions? Like, do rich people just attract murder? I'm very confused. Anyway, the mansion is located on a hilltop in LA, and boy, oh boy, does it have a brutal past. During the 1950s, the mansion was owned by Dr. Harold Perelson, his wife, and their 3 children. On the night of December 6, 1959, something came over Harold that people are still unable to explain 50 years later. He went downstairs and beat his wife to death with a hammer. He then moved on to one of his daughters and severely beat her too, but thankfully not to death. After these random acts of violence, Harold decided to commit suicide by drinking a mix of acid, water, and tranquilizer pills. After the horrific incident, the mansion was bought a year later as a storage site, but no one lived there for the next 50 years. Neighbors remember seeing the couple who bought the house move boxes into the mansion, but they never stayed the night. The couple's son Rudy inherited the house, and although he has no plans to sell it, he still has no plans to live there either. No one has been invited into the home after the murders, but trespassers and adrenaline junkies do come there. Like, they have picnics in the decaying garden. They've even tried to break in. And the real reason they want to see it is because the Perelsons' furniture is all still in there. Like, if you look through the window, you can see the 50s style TV, a Christmas tree with gifts underneath it, and it's just exactly the same as it was that fateful night, except covered in dust and death. Now, people speculate Harold did it because of financial troubles, while others say they found documents of him having been secretly hospitalized in his past. Whatever the case, his children actually survived the ordeal and haven't been in the media since. Not that you have the option to move into this house since it's owned by Rudy, I just wouldn't do it. Now at number 2 is the Kreischer Mansion. Now the mansion is located on Staten Island in New York and was built by German immigrant Balthasar Kreischer back in 1885. The house is a 2.5-story beauty. It has a bunch of verandas, decorative railings, tall chimneys. It's just very cute. Anyway, the man had 2 sons, Edward and Charles, and in 1894 Edward shot himself in his right temple, dying instantly. His ghost has been seen all over the property for decades, but it just gets worse than that. Now, his ghost has been seen all over the property for decades, but it gets a lot worse. The family business burned down during the Great Depression and they lost everything. By 1998, the property was bought in order to be restored. It was sold again, and in 2005, a horrible mob killing took place inside the home. The caretaker of the home was found out to be a hitman for the Bonanno crime family, which was one of the major families in the American mafia at the time. Now, the person killed was a rival mob associate called Robert McKelvey. Apparently, Robert had a big mouth and owed one of the associates, Gino Galastro, a lot of money. He was lured to the Kreischer Mansion, and kudos to him, he put up quite a fight against the 5 people he was up against, one being Gino, who was also a mafia soldier. Don't even know what a mafia soldier is, didn't even know they existed. Either way, the 5 failed to strangle him to death, so they stabbed him, then dragged his body to the pond and then drowned him. They then dismembered his body with a hacksaw and incinerated all of it in the mansion's furnace. Now, the owners of the mansion had no clue this had even happened. They were in the middle of developing the house into an assisted living center for old people and had recently replaced the furnace. That's so innocent. Like, I love how they just had no idea what was going on. Cute. And finally, at number 1 is the Menendez murder home. Other than the murder of Sharon Tate and Nicole Brown Simpson, this is probably one of the biggest Hollywood murder cases ever. And honestly, not that I know who Jose and Kitty Menendez were since they were before my time, but I'm sure a lot of you probably do. Now, Jose was a self-made Cuban millionaire and the executive vice president at an independent film company. The couple and their sons Eric and Lyle were renting a house in Beverly Hills while renovations were being done on their actual home. Now, the 2-story house has 9,000 square feet of living space and takes up just about half an acre of land. It has a private tennis court, it has pools, a 2-story guest house, and Elton John even rented it at one point. On the night of August 20th, 1989, 2 suspects entered the home with a shotgun and shot Jose and Kitty to death. The culprits? None other than their 2 sons Eric and Lyle. Now, it said Jose was very demanding of his sons, making them meet impossible impossible standards, and Kitty was suffering from an array of things: depression, drug addiction, and alcoholism. The brothers were sentenced to life in prison for the murders, and their trial was highly publicized on TV. The brothers had run-ins with the law before, but since their dad basically shat money, it was never a problem. Described as a sociopath, Lyle had a horrible temper and a mean streak, and he was apparently the mastermind behind it all. Eric, on the other hand, was sensitive and quiet, and he's actually the one who confessed to his therapist about the murder. During the 6 months after the murders, the brothers spent $1 million of their parents' money just partying away. Eventually, Eric's therapist told his girlfriend about the murders, who then told the police. Took you long enough. During their trials, the brothers said their parents abused them, but there was little to no evidence of that. I know that was a lot more detail than necessary, but I just found the case so interesting. Like, what would possess you to shoot your own parents when they could give you everything you ever wanted? Even if they couldn't, why would you shoot your own parents?